Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are taking a look at Monday night on Thanksgiving week here, Nate. We've got roughly, what do we got here? 7-8 games to choose from on a Monday night. Pretty nice slate here. We're going to kick things off with the Hawks and the Cavs in this one for you. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page as well so you can catch the other game we have up for you and our player props that we're bringing you each and every weekday of this regular season. Also want you to head to thelines.com. We have our great written content up there all season long for you guys, and our odds finder tool that you can go ahead and use to make sure you're shopping those lines to the best of your ability across U.S. sportsbooks. Nate, let's jump into these lines tonight and then get into Cavs Hawks.
Yeah, it is 8 games, and that's the first game on the schedule. Hawks plus 2.5 at Cleveland, total of 226. Then we got Magic plus 6 at Pacers, Heat without Jimmy Butler plus 8.5 at Minnesota, the Warriors plus 6 at Pelicans, Celtics minus 6 at Bulls. We're going to break that one down for you. The Knicks are plus 2.5 at the Thunder. Blazers without Dame, plus 9.5 at the Bucks, who just got Drew Holiday back. And then the Jazz are plus 3 at the Clippers to cap things off. I mean, Hawks Cavs right now, I really don't want to try to pick a winner in this game, I think. But I really do like the over at the same time. I think the Cavs are not as good defensively as they were last year. Still pretty good. But for various reasons, just the scheme, and they're way better offensively. I mean, that's what we know first and foremost. They're 5-2 to the over at home at this point. And key here, 6-1 to the over when they're slight favorites, 1 to 4 points. Even the under in that when they are favored was a pretty high total. They just went slightly below it. And I mean, their defense, like I said, is not quite as good. And even when it was excellent last year, Trae Young was just a scheme breaker for them. I mean, they protect the rim so well with Allen and Mobley, but Trae's just the giant killer. I mean, whatever he's known how to do this his whole life. It seems he's got his array of floaters, finishes at the rim, great passes out of traffic. In 3 regular season games against the Cavs, he averaged 35, 9.5 assists, shot 50 from the floor, 46% from 3, was a plus 36. Atlanta won all 3. All 3 went over. Atlanta scored 125 a game with a 133 offensive rating with Trae leading the way. And then in the playing game as well, 38-9 and better than 50% shooting. That one went under, of course, because it's a winner go home situation. But yeah, Atlanta on the road right now, if you just bet that over every time, you would be up 600% because they're 6-1. Yep. And they've gone over in 10 of their last 14 overall. On the road, you look, their defensive rating jumps 7 points per 100 possessions. They score 4 more points per game. They shoot 8 percentage points better from 3. And their 6 bets in fourth quarter scoring, that was a lot higher before what they struggled against Boston. Oh, but that was at home, so it didn't affect their road scoring. In any case, I mean, you look at their last 8, playing with good pace, 101 right now, scoring 115. Their last 2 roadies, 121 in Milwaukee. They gave up 121 in Philadelphia against a team that's generally slow-paced. I mean, there's a lot of really key numbers here. The 2 that really jumped at me is that Cleveland, they're going over at home because they get to the line so well with Donnie and Darius Garland breaking people down, 6th most free throws. And right now Atlanta's allowing the highest percentage of points off free throws when they're on the road, 21% of their points. And then that both these teams are guarding the 3-point line pretty well, or Atlanta specifically, and Cleveland is bottom 8 in terms of their points off threes recently. Atlanta is dead last in points off threes. So the mid-range game is going to be key here. I got to mention as well the injuries. Karis LeVert out, or doubtful. Kevin Love out. Yeah, not as important. But with LeVert out, I think we see a lot more of Cedi Osman, who's slightly worse defender. I mean, probably a way worse defender to be honest, and a good offensive player. I mean, LeVert's been awful on offense this year, and has not been a good fit alongside those 2 creative guards. So I think, and Osman had 20 points in 27 minutes the last time he faced Atlanta. Still was a -5. So I think they're going to trade a little offense for defense there. You'd think, oh, maybe their defense will be better because Isaac Okoro and Lamar Stevens will play more. Well, they both have like 135 defensive rating in those last 3 against Trey and the Hawks. So I just see a lot of points coming here. We did whiff on this when Cleveland was at Golden State, but I think this time we will be right that there will be plenty of points going back and forth.
Yeah, what you just said only really adds to what we're saying. They were in Golden State for that game, right? And that one ended at like under 210, but that's not this situation. So this is a total situational matchup here. We were looking for things we liked on this slate in general. And this just, there's not that many spreads tonight that I really want to hit. There's a lot of guys out, so creating these giant, 9 to 11 point spreads for teams like the Blazers in Milwaukee, Miami, and Minnesota. So I don't love all of those things. And in this matchup, I do lean Cavs a bit. I think the situation calls for over. Like this game should probably be 230, 231 in my opinion. I think one of these teams is getting to like 120 points, essentially 118 points. So that makes me feel really good about 226. The situation calls for the over everywhere. You just touched on it in a myriad of different ways. You can also talk about obviously Atlanta away is 6-1 to the over when they're dogs on the road as well, 4-1. When they're in these situations on no rest, Cleveland is 2-0, which they are right now, which I think is a little bit of the hesitancy to take them even with a small spread. But not only is Atlanta just their defense is worse on the road, their offense is better on the road, and Trey Young is the road assassin, as we know. So that's why we're definitely looking for him tonight. And when Trey Young goes, that offense goes, right. Like even if they're not playing at the pace on the road that they are at home, still 100 pace on the road, which is still good for roughly top 10 in the league overall. 103 at home is absurd. So you're not going to hit that, but they're way more efficient on the road with the way they're doing things. The defense is way worse. We talked about that as well. The matchup leads to me liking Cleveland a little bit more if I had to. It's only a 2-point spread, so it's not like I feel super comfortable either way. But you also look at, like I said, them in no rest is a pretty good situation as well, dating back to last season. I do like the fact that everything that you said like about the matchup in terms of Atlanta's offense and their lack of defense, their defense against threes, their lack of defense in other areas that I think you can expect some pretty nice results for the Cavs tonight because of the fact that I do think they can bang down low well enough. As you said, Isaac Okoro coming back doesn't really scare me. He's looked a lot better as a backup center on the offensive end than we've expected, which is why another reason I think their bench scoring has not gone down the way that it did last season. As soon as you take Trey off the floor, you do have a backup big man to at least run with those guys. And obviously now that you have a few others in DeJounte on the floor to be able to run with a second unit as well, that the points continue to flow for Atlanta as opposed to that sort of stimmying that would happen when Trey would come off the floor last season. So even without Bogey. So yeah, points. If you want to pick a team in this one, I lean Cleveland, but I still don't feel comfortable enough to put money on them nearly as much as I do with the bet that I like in terms of over 226.5 tonight.
Yeah, and I'd be wary because it's the Hawks against an Eastern Conference contender now, and that's when they tend to show up. We talk about at home a lot more, but it's their home road splits are less stark now. I think they're capable of winning this game for sure after losing to the Celtics in their last kind of important one. I mean, they're coming off a home win over Toronto as well, which is what really impressed me. And gets back to Trey Young, who we're going to talk about in player props for sure. I mean, his props I looked at, I thought it was like a bit of a misprint as well. I mean, along with the total 26.5 points, it should be like 28.5, 35.5 points assists. That should also be about 2 higher after he's coming off a 33-12 game against Toronto, which this year I have more respect for what they can do defensively than Cleveland right now, especially on the perimeter. Like Cleveland protect the rim, but they don't have any answers for Trey. Like he's cooked them. And so I think if you want to look at some player performance doubles, if you want to take Atlanta, to get the juice there, that's great. But I think right now they're about even money and close spread. There's not a lot of opportunity on the spread for me.
Yeah, no question here. I'm sticking over. We gave you more than enough incentive for that on our side here. So, there's no point beating that to death. And like I said, just not comfortable enough to put money on either of these teams tonight. I think there's other spreads that are worth hitting. This game is all about the total. So
Celtics, we're going to look at this game right now. It's -6 at Bulls. That total's been bet up, though, Josh, to 229, as they often do with the Celtics. The Knicks are +2.5 at Thunder. Totals at 230 there. Blazers without Dame +9.5 at the Bucks. Lower total 215. And then the Jazz +3 at the Clippers. Yeah, I mean, with the Celtics, they're on a 9-game heater right now. They're scoring a ton. Still, on the road, they have not been hitting these totals that consistently. So seeing it bet up to 229, maybe you want to tease it in the other direction at this point. I like getting the Celtics down to -2. And I think I would do that with another game. Probably with the total we talked about in our other game video. Hawks, Cavs right now, 226. If that's at 222, I feel supremely confident that you can go over there. I think the Celtics are going to keep winning here. I mean, the Bulls have immediately regressed to what they were last year, which is a team that just cannot beat contenders. A poor defensive team. And I mean, the biggest stat, we could go give you no other stats other than the fact that Chicago is dead last in opponents' 3-point percentage over the last week at 48%. And the Celtics are lighting up the league at an unprecedented rate from 3. They actually struggled in their last meeting with the Bulls, which kicked off this 9-game streak, right? They shot 9 for 31 from deep. And since then, they're shooting 41% from 3. They're hitting 17.5 threes. They have the best offensive rating in NBA history. But that game still went over against the Bulls. I mean, it was in Boston, first of all. So that's been a big discrepancy. Celtics scoring a lot more. 6-1 to the over at home, 3-5-1 to the over on the road. But the Stars were just getting the line at a ridiculous rate. Celtics shot 39 free throws as a team. Tatum shot 20. DeMar DeRozan had 46 points with 22 free throws. Both the third and fourth quarter combined for over 60. So I mean, Marcus Smart's status is definitely something to watch here. It sounds like he's going to come back after missing a couple games. You'd think that hurts their defense. I mean, hurts their offense and helps their defense. But I think Smart has really rounded out his game as a facilitator that could actually spark the Celtics offense a little bit more. Derek White is playing out of his mind right now. I mean, they just have so many creators and scorers. And then you look at Tatum and what he's done against the Bulls recently. Like I said, 20 free throws, 36 points. They have no real good option to guard him. So, I mean, I have no problem if you just want to take the Celtics straight up. But for me, I would rather use the tease and use it with another game that I'm pretty confident about.
Yeah, I don't love the 6. I mean, the thing is like, if you remember, and I'm sure you do, that game, because we picked it and it's your C's, but the game that we talked about on the 4th, what was it, like whenever they lost earlier this season to the Bulls, right? In Chicago, that was the beginning of that 9-game streak you said. That was a game that at the beginning of the game, I think they took like an early 8 to 10 point lead, and we were like, oh, nice, all right. But then it seemed like, okay, maybe no rest was an issue for them that game, and it all just fell apart. They shot 37% from the field as a team in that game. Did the Celtics? So
and that 100 field goal attempts, which is absurd.
100 field goal attempts, 50 of them, only 50 of them were contested. They had 50 uncontested shots that they missed. So that's just insanely fluky to me. You can't you can't replicate that in its exactness. So short of they shot 37% from 3, by the way, in that game as well. They had a better percentage from 3 slightly than they did from the field. It was a weird ass game, right? And I don't know that you should expect the same sort of weird anomaly. And if you're expecting this to be, go according to script of the way that the Celtics are playing versus the way the Bulls are playing since they last met, especially, right? Like since they met that 10th game ago for the Celtics, the last 9 they've won, they've dominated in incredible fashion on offense. Their defense has been acceptable, right? Like it's been good enough to win with the best offense in the history of the league, that's for sure. And Chicago has been everything not that, right? And you talk about them regressing in the last 9 back to what they were from the standpoint of losing to teams that are good in the East the way they did last year. They also are regressing to the way that they did in terms of the beginning of the season when it was like maybe they're good. Their defensive rating is in the top 15-ish, so it seems sustainable. But that offensive rating right now, especially with the way Zach LaVine is not really come back into form to mix in well, playing all season long now as opposed to being hurt last season, right? He's been playing for the last 9 games. So has DDR, Dosunmu, Vucevic. This is a team that's at full strength, but it just might not be as good as we thought it was, right? 24th in offensive rating over their last 10. 15th in defensive rating is fine, but they're not getting any turnovers. They're turning the ball over in the way of the bottom 10 there. Their assists, they're bottom 5. They're shooting, unsurprisingly, we talk about most from they're shooting, all their shots from mid-range. They're shooting the third most field goal attempts from 2. They're not even attempting threes. They are getting to the line, as we talk about, 7th most free throw attempts in the league. But Boston is 6th in terms of limiting their opponent's free throw attempts, playing pretty good defense and a little bit of Olay defense around the rim, knowing that it's not necessarily worth it to foul guys that are driving when they don't have a rim protector. Sometimes you got to give up some easier ones. And obviously for them, like I would be getting up into people and taking away those 2-pointers, not worrying about the 3-pointers, but everything from like 17 feet in is just going to be just hounded by the Celtics. It's all that they have to do in this game. Just reverting back to the point about the Bulls playing down once they start playing good comp, especially in the East. They're 1-4 against the spread this season as home dogs, losing those games by an average of 9 points a game, failing to cover by about 7 points a game when they are dogs in that situation. So there's not much for me to like about Chicago right now. I definitely was happy to pick under their win total this season. At the beginning of the season, I think they're starting to play into that form that we expect. And Boston, man, I mean, they're definitely a 6-point spread in this one, in my opinion. I don't really want to touch the total just because also Chicago's gotten a bit better against the 3-pointer. I know the last 3 games has been awful, but overall in their last 10, they did take a little bit of a step forward before those last 3. So it's not like it's totally just the way that I think that they're going to play this season is just giving up threes to that extent. But I still feel good about Boston doing everything that they want to do, whether it's in transition or in the half court at this point. Like 6 points to me is not enough for a Boston team that is on another tier than it's like them and Milwaukee at full strength, but even Milwaukee not at full strength. I still think Boston's just a tick ahead of them and definitely a solid 6 points ahead of the Bulls on the road.
Yeah, I mean, forget good teams. The Bulls haven't beaten anybody in their last 4 or 6 of their last 7. They beat shorthanded Toronto. That's their only win in that span. And if you look at on the course over the season right now, 3-8 versus any team with a winning record or at 500. In their last 4, they've just been putrid, really the last 5 from beyond the arc, shooting about 26% from 3. And that was the issue for them last year when Zach LaVine got a little dinged up and then they had no one to threaten you with from beyond the arc. Like DeMar DeRozan is a great player and he's probably going to get his, but you can't match 2s with 3s in the NBA, right? I mean, especially when you're giving up the highest percentage on the other end. They just got waxed by Denver, spreading the ball around. Jokic getting 14 dimes in that game to find open shooters. The Celtics are playing incredible team ball, like I said, with Marcus Smart keying the action. I think their assist rate should be even higher in this one. They have the number 1 assist to turnover ratio in their last 10. Yeah, I mean, their offense is just incredible right now. I mean, second to Sacramento, and I'm excited to see their next 2 games here. Just FYI, like at home against Luka on the night before Thanksgiving, and then at home against that second offense in the Kings on Friday. So start looking ahead for those lines, see where you can get those.
No doubt. If that Sacramento line comes out anywhere below 235, hit it immediately and then act accordingly, in my opinion. But that'll be super fun. And yeah, and this one, just to finish the point about, the Bulls allowing a ton of assists as well. Not good against this team with 2 point guards now, right? Maybe 3 if you consider Derek White occasionally playing some nice ball control. So a team that has struggled to assist each other as of, the previous couple seasons, and that was a big thing. Joe Mazzulla, former point guard, is definitely handling those duties as coach right now, 3rd most assists for the Celtics. So yeah, you gotta love this matchup for them, and you gotta also love, like you said, 3 is worth more than 2, dude. And if you were going to build a team around DeMar again, I think you would want a lot more 3-point shooting. Maybe that's what they were hoping they were getting from Kobe White. Not the case this season. So they're going to continue to struggle on offense as they have. Nate, let's go ahead and get into your first play a prop for tonight.
Yeah, I mentioned in that first game video we have that the Hawks, Cavs, the total seems a little low. Trae Young's total seems a little low as well at 26.5 points. Really like the 35.5 points assists, since he is always a double-digit assist threat as well. And he's really what I call the scheme breaker against the Cavs. They're a great defense, but they have not been able to hold him in check with that oversized front line. He's averaging 35.3, 9.7 assists, and shooting 50% from the floor, 46% from three in his last 3 regular season meetings with the Cavs. Also had 38-9 in a play-in game against them last year. Atlanta scoring 125 with a 133 offensive rating, with Trae leading the way there. And this year he's actually been a little bit better on the road, more efficient, 116 offensive rating versus 109 at home. And the Hawks in general are shooting better from 3 on the road. And I mean, his average is 27.5. I think he can definitely get his average on the road here. And he's coming off impressive performances at home against Toronto and Boston, 2 defenses that I think are more difficult for Trae to deal with than these Cavs right now because of their rangy wings. And he had 33-12 against Toronto on Saturday, 27-9 against Boston, even though the Hawks did not compete down the stretch. So would have hit these props in both of those. And the Hawks' slight rest advantage now. The Cavs are on a back-to-back. They're not going to be playing. They're not going to have Karis LeVert, and I think that makes it even more exploitative for Trae to attack some of these younger guys on the wing.
Yeah, I'm going to take Trae on the road a lot. I thought this would be a little bit higher. Obviously, that Cavs D, it's good. It's like you said, it's not quite what it was last year. I mean, probably at the very least because they're better on offense as well, and sacrificing a little bit of that. I mean, obviously having Donnie and Darius on the floor at the same time, you like that for Trae in this game, and that causes a little bit of an uptick maybe in his possible points tonight. We like points in this one as well, as we talk about in that game video, so I think it's a good opportunity here. I'm going to go for a game that I think will also have points, mostly because the Warriors cannot play defense to save their lives, and they're in New Orleans tonight. So taking this, a back-to-back for them. They did beat the Rockets and get their first road victory yesterday. Did not cover that 10.5 point spread, which was way too high for an 0-8 team on the road. But 28.5 points tonight for Steph. I don't know if Clay is going to play or not. He finally went off last night and put some of the criticism to not necessarily to bed. He has to keep doing it, but at least quieted it for a night. Like I said, I don't know if he's going to be playing tonight. Steph at 28.5 points, very high. He's at 32.5 on the season. In a situation like this where I don't know what, where they're on the road, their offense, Jordan Poole, all these role players, even Clay before last night, just bad on the road, just so much worse. Their offense isn't quite the same even on the road as it is at home. It's just their defense is just so much worse on the road. So I do like points in this game again. 28.5 points, 4.5 threes. If you get over that, I mean, for him to make 5 on FanDuel is minus 130 right now. You look at what he loves playing against New Orleans. He loves playing in New Orleans. His last 4 versus them, wherever they're playing, 31 points, 5 boards, and 7 assists, all across 33 minutes. Key stat there, 6 for 15 from 3 per game in those last 4 versus New Orleans. Love that he's taking 15 threes for this bet. Like I said, likely no Clay. You look at Steph on the road in this season, the last 10, 33 points a game, 8 boards, 8 assists. That's in 37 minutes. I think he gets a few more minutes on the road for a reason. They need him a little bit earlier in games as they've been losing a lot in the fourth quarter. And so they can't wait for the 6 or 7 minute mark for him to come back in. He's coming back in at like 9 minutes left in the fourth right now. 5.5 threes on 12 attempts in those last 10 roadies as well. That's something that you're going to keep saying. He's going to have 12 3-point attempts tonight. And if he's going to shoot 43%, 42% from 3 like he has this season, and he's able to get those 5, plus you look at the way he's getting to the line, probably finishing better around the rim this year than ever before. I think one time he's had better field goal percentage in the paint, and that was his unanimous MVP season. So back to his old ways, looks really, really good. And without Steph or without Clay, without Poole playing well on the road, there's not much else for this team right now, who is still not necessarily back in the conversation for a playoff contender, or at least championship contenders coming out of the West just yet. They're gonna have to do a bit more, and it's going to continue to be Steph who's got to pull them through on offense. So 28.5 points seems very reasonable for him.
Yeah, at first, weren't you like, I'm interested in the under on Steph? And I said, like, are you crazy? Like, there's no way you should bet an under. Maybe you want to stay away from an over sometimes, but he's having the best season of his career. Like, right? Isn't he playing better
It
than he
is.
was when he was unanimous MVP? He's like 32 points,
Yeah.
7 dimes, 53% from the floor, 45% from three. He's a plus 103. The Warriors starting lineup is like the best lineup in the league, and then their bench is like the worst. So I mean, yeah, it's just like no matter how this game kind of unfolds, it's Steph's going to get his, and he's either going to carry the Warriors to competitive, or he's hopefully not going to get blown out and then have to sit in the fourth
Yeah.
quarter. But as long as it's relatively close, he should be out there.
Yeah.
In this Bucks Blazers game, we wanted to look at the Blazers plus 10, stars out, bets up. The Bucks are just a real scary team when they're at home right now. They're finally back to almost full strength. I mean, Drew Holiday might be on a minutes limit to a degree. He came off the bench last time, but they have Drew. They have Javon Carter playing like a dog, and they have Giannis, of course, and that is a tough matchup for Jeremy Grant, who I think his prop spiked because Dame Lillard is out for a couple weeks, and he does see a higher usage. You look in 5 games with the Blazers without Dame, 21.5 points, 5 rebounds, 4 dimes, about 25% usage. His props at 20.5 points against the best defense in the league, and Giannis, who has a 100 individual defensive rating, and the 3 turnovers per game with that increased usage when he's been on Portland. That's actually the most interesting thing to me. Over 2.5 turnovers at plus 150 at DraftKings. He's hit that in 4 or 5 without Dame and on the Blazers here. But I'm going under 20.5 points. Also like under 2.5 threes. He's right now in those 5 games again, hitting 2.2 threes at a 41% clip. And that's way above like what you would say is the statistical average for a guy like Grant. He's not a 41% 3-point shooter, and he's not going to be that in this matchup because the Bucks are running people off the 3-point line. They're 5th in 3-pointers allowed, and they're not giving up anything else either. 2nd in paint points, 1st in assists allowed, and fewest points to power forwards in particular. Again, Giannis. So I'm going under on Grant for sure tonight.
Yeah, I like it. Also got Patty Connaughton back. Helps that wing defense for sure. Wes Matthews is out, but yeah, I mean, with Patty Connaughton back, Grayson Allen still out there. You've got some rangy, athletic dudes on the wing guarding guys out there, which is the only place that I would feel comfortable betting on Jeremy Grant is that he's going to stand out there, and Giannis might not go all the way out there, and now you're depending on a few other guys to get their hands up in Jeremy Grant's face when he has run to the corner and shot a lot of threes from over there where he's successful. So that would be the only place that I would consider him able to have success. But I do, because he's not coming in the paint. With these two guys out there, obviously Giannis waiting for him, and then Brolo coming off trying to block shots as well. So yeah, at home for this Milwaukee defense, I was thinking maybe over on Anthony Simons, but even that scares me a little bit. I mean, I could see this being a somewhat lower scoring game for sure, as these Milwaukee home games have been wont to do this season. So we're going to finish things off here with a guy we haven't taken enough, obviously big friend of the show and player props MVP, DeMar DeRozan, DDR as he's finally known. It's 24.5 points, minus 105 at DraftKings. So like even money for him to get 25. He's done that twice now against Boston this season. The first win, the first game that they played there, 25-5-5 in a win over Boston that first game. 46 points last time out in that most recent game on the 4th of November. And yeah, I mean, he's had some up and down games sort of against the Celtics overall, but like the last 2, the way that they're playing and the way that this defense for the Celtics is not the same defense. It's also playing a little bit faster and just so amazing on offense that it's just a slightly different makeup. In this year so far, DDR has had plenty of success against him. We talk about the Bulls just being anemic lately on offense, but the thing that they continue to do well is shoot from the mid-range, because that's the thing that DeMar continues to do well. His last 4 overall against whomever they're playing, 30 points a game on 57% shooting. So that's sort of the exact sort of range that we saw from him last season when he went on that insane tear, right, for like 10 games in a row. 35 minutes a game with that 32% usage. And we talk about Zach LaVine just really has not been the guy that they need him to be this season so far. Getting some points. It's a little bit more your turn, my turn, but the offense hasn't really turned into something that scares you. It's mostly just, is DeMar going to make this shot as he goes one-on-one from 15 feet out? And we continue to like him to be able to do that in all his matchups.
Yeah, not much to say here. I mean, DeMar DeRozan is 25 points is pretty low for the DeMar DeRozan of last year. We haven't seen that guy consistently, but we have against the Celtics. And I mean, Boston at some point has to slow down. They're on a 9-game heater here. I think we at least see the Bulls put up a good fight at home. And he's done that twice this season against the Celtics, topped this total. I mean, crushed this total last time out. So yeah, I think it's a solid pick for sure at even money.
Yeah, and it was a weird, ugly game the first time that he still got 25. We talk about the Celtics shot 37% from the field in that game. Just crushed the flow of the game at all, and he still, like we said, get 25 points with that 32% usage rate. So give me that even money for 25 on our guy. And that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We are coming back to you guys each and every weekday of this regular season. So until we see you next, happy betting.